Hello champions and future champions, hello Chessmood family. Gabuzyan is here with you and we are beginning our daily lesson. In this video, we are going to see disadvantages of knight d2 or knight e2 moves in the opening. The same for the black side if knight is going to d7 or to e7 squares. In this position, it's white to move and it's taken from a real game. Here white makes a mistake and goes knight to e2. Now I will offer you to pause the video and think why is it wrong, as well trying to decide black's reaction in this position. Let's first of all compare the knights on e2 and d2 squares with the knights on c6 and f6. These knights are staying much more active. They are controlling squares in the center e4 and d5, d4 and d5. Meanwhile, these knights are only controlling d4 and e4 squares. Sometimes these knights are being on the way of our bishops and they are preventing them from development. Meanwhile, knights on f6 and c6 are staying very healthy. All of this means our pieces are in a better location and we are ready to open up the center. In this position, black plays pawn to d5 move. Now, it's really unclear how to react for white. If white takes on d5, we play knight takes d5, attacking the bishop with the tempo. If white goes back, we can continue with e takes d4, opening up the e-file, and in conditions when white king is in the center, our rook on e8 is going to stay very well. For this reason, after d5, taking on d5 is not a good option. White can try to take on e5, but it's also leading to a bad position. Now we go knight to e5. If here white is ignoring a threat and plays e takes d5, we are mating in a funny way with knight d3. All of the squares are occupied. So after knight d5, white needs to take care of this square, but something like knight g3 is again leading to a passive position. We have now d takes e4, knight takes e4 and knight d5. Again our knights are stronger, both of them are in the center. Meanwhile, white's knights are protecting each other and taking squares of each other. On top of this, white is losing some time when improving position of one of the knights. Here, after white goes back with the bishop, we can play f5, throw this knight away, go rook e8, and again threats through the e-file are going to be decisive. For this reason, after d5, in the game white tried to play bishop g5. But it also loses a tempo since bishop was already placed on e3 square. We are using this time to bring our rook into the game. Black goes rook to e8. Now d takes e5 is again being met by knight e5. And we are having a threat to checkmate on d3. After rook e8, in the game white played e takes d5. But now we take with the queen. We have a great positions in the center. Our pieces are much better prepared for the play in an open lines. White pieces are still very passive. In this position, black has a great advantage and later on, black is winning in this game. Let's now for a second go back to the very beginning of this example. As I mentioned, in this position, white played knight e2 and got d5 move. I will offer you to pause the video and for a second think how white is supposed to play here. White can go d5 and in this case position will be closed. In that conditions, already putting knight on e2 in some occasions will be fine since black cannot open up the position quickly and use this advantage of bad position for white knights. Now let's go ahead to see our next example. In this position we have a very similar to the previous one situation. Now it's white to move. The difference is that now both of opponent's bishops are developed. Let's think how are we going to play for white in this position. we are still playing d4 and fighting for the center. Another benefit of opponent's knight not being placed on c6 and f6 squares, that these squares are not under attack, so we can make this kind of central breaks as opponent is having a weak control of the center. Let's take a look at few reactions here for black. If black takes on e4, we play knight takes e4. Now bishop is under attack. If black goes back to c7, we can take on e5, and after queen d1, rook d1 and pawn takes e5, opponent is getting a blocked, isolated pawn in a center. As we know, it's a good outcome for us. After d4, if black decides to take on e4, it's going to be very similar. Now we play knight takes d4. Bishop f7 now, and as well, we are taking on d5. Pawn takes d5 is leading to an isolated pawn again, when we have very good pieces blocking this. As well now, white has a strong resource to play. You can pause the video and think about it. We go queen g4, using the fact black didn't castle yet. And after we force castle, we can play knight d6. Now we are attacking the queen and threatening a checkmate through g7 square. So black has to take, but after queen e6 check and king h8, we can take the pawn. As well, we can keep the advantage of bishop pair and very much weakened light squares on the king side. For this reason, after e takes d5, black is not taking with the pawn. If black now takes with the bishop, we play bishop d5, pawn takes d5 and knight d6, attacking the queen and the pawn. Winning the pawn, leaving opponent's king in the center is enough for white to have a winning position. And the last option for black, after e takes d5 to play knight d5, is again failing because of rook e1 check, still keeping opponent's king in the center. After king f8, we can also try to go knight e6. As well, it's alright if we go knight to c4 with a huge pressure. For this reason, after d4 move in the game, black tried to go knight to d7. White continued with queen e2 and eventually won this game. But instead of this, white had a better continuation. After knight d7, I offer you to pause the video and think what's gonna be the best here for white. Now we're starting to break opponent's center with e takes d5. There are a few reactions possible. Let's take a look at all of them. If black takes with the pawn, with an idea to have a healthy center, we have a very nice idea. Pawn takes e5, f takes e5, and here white has a great move. You can pause the video and try to find it. Now, temporarily, black has a very beautiful center with beautiful pieces, but let's admit, even here it would be way better to have the knights on f6 and c6 square. Because they are not placed well, we can go here c4 and break this pawn chain. If black plays d4, we are getting this long diagonal opened for our bishop, extremely good square for our knight on e4. As well, right now, we have a concrete move, going knight to g5, attacking this bishop and pawn on b7 at the same time. After c4, if black is ignoring this and decides to castle, again we have knight g5. This bishop has nowhere to go, and on the next move we are taking on d5. This means that after c4, black can try to take, but again, now we have knight e4 with a tempo, attacking the bishop, with the tempo bringing our piece into the game, followed by knight fg5. We are making a huge pressure on opponent's position. Bishop c7, knight fg5. Black has nowhere to go with this bishop as well. If they are trying to go to f7, we can take it. Knight f7, king f7, and knight g5 check here is winning, followed by knight e6. So we're seeing that in different ways white is gaining a huge activity, and for this reason, after e takes d5, we know that pawn takes d5 now is not a good choice. If black here tries to take with a knight, we can be playing with knight c4 move, attacking the bishop, and after bishop c7, we take on e5. forcing opponent to get an isolated pawn in the center. After pawn takes e5, we can be going knight to g5. As well, we are having rook e1 option. In both scenarios, white has a solid advantage. And the last option left for black, after e takes d5, if black here is taking back with the bishop, we can go c4. After bishop f7, knight e4, and again having a very nice middle game position. Bishop c7, queen goes to c2. We are planning to go with our rook to d1. Each time black is taking on d4, we take knight d4, and there is a huge difference among our knights. Meanwhile, ours are staying very strong in the center and controlling a lot of territory. Black knights are very passive and are limiting their own pieces. Even though this is the best continuation for black in all of the lines, still white has a much better position. We have seen few examples about the difference of the knights, and we know that if it's not necessary and there is no other choice, better not to have the knights on these locations. Now, let's go ahead to the next example, which will be your homework for this topic. Let me show you few moves that are possible out of the opening. e4 e6, d4 d5, this is the French defense, knight d2, knight c6, and there is knight e2 move in this position. So your homework is to tell what do you think about this move and as well options for black. You can share your thoughts and ideas in the comments section below. Gabuzyan was here with you. Thank you for your subscriptions, likes, and sharing this video with your friends. We appreciate it a lot. See you next time during our next daily lessons.